Hello and welcome to the show, and welcome to the Battle of Pultusk, 26th of December 1806. Well, it's actually the northern flank of Pultusk, which would be the Russian right wing and the French left wing. Following Napoleon's successful passage of the Ukra, Russian armies had been forced back north towards Golymin and northeast toward Pultusk. The Emperor required that Marshal Lannes march directly on Pultusk, cross the Narew and immediately construct a bridgehead. Around 10 o'clock on the 26th of December, Lannes arrived before the Russian position. He could see Cossacks and regular cavalry along the crest of a ridge, with infantry and artillery deployed in front, and further away in the Mosin Wood, which straddled the ridge and the Golymin-Pultusk road. The French advance guard will be coming from the west, moving past the village of Mosin up to the high ground and into the woods. The Russians, on the other hand, are located on the high ground in the woods. Infantry pushed out to the front, Cossacks to their right and in the low ground, and the only stipulation for the artillery is that they are on the lower left-hand side of the Russian position. Russian reserves must deploy on the road from Pultusk. Although it is late December and there have been snows and low temperatures, currently a thaw has set in and the field and the roads have turned to mud. The French objective is to seize the high ground. The Russian division is under command of General Barclay de Tolly, who is a campaigner, and he'll have 5 ADCs. He has a brigade of Jaegers along with a 9-pounder foot battery, which is large, a standard musketeer brigade, a Cossack brigade, and in reserve some dragoons. The French attackers were a bit of a mishmash, various divisions from different corps. However, I've given them under one command with General Suchet, who's a campaigner. He has 1 adjutant and 5 ADCs. The advance guard of his force will consist of 1 bold brigadier with grenadier and line battalions and a brigade of dragoons. Late to the party will be 2 brigades of standard line infantry. Unfortunately for the French, the poor weather conditions made the roads impassable with all the mud. The artillery failed to turn up for this battle, so the French don't have any. We're in the woods with Barclay de Tolly and his ADCs. He's got 1 caisson. Forward of him, we have the Jaeger Brigade with the guns on their left. Standard Musketeer Brigade. And over on the right, lurking in the low ground, are the Cossacks waiting to pounce. Suchet and his advance guard. Here's the 1st Brigade here, the veterans with the grenadiers, and we've also got the Dragoon Brigade, and there's old Suchet surrounded by his ADCs. And they've got a hard task ahead of them. Rolling for ADCs with a French adjutant reroll. So the French have 3 and the Russians have 1. Suchet has decided to have 1 ADC reroll per brigade and get them moving, and he's using the 3rd ADC for scouts. Whereas the Russians are just having 1 brigade reroll with their ADC so we can get the guns into action. Alright, the infantry brigade here, they're okay. And the dragoons, they're okay as well. En avant. So reroll for the Russians. They're okay. Initiative goes to the Russians. No charges from either side. No movement from the Russians. They're going to stay on the hill, so we'll move over to the French. Skirmishers start to move forward. And then the battalions. The cavalry straight down the road. Skirmishers are out of range, so the only unit that can fire at the moment is the 9-pounder battery. They're at long range, but they are elevated because of being on this hill, so they can fire at that left-hand battalion. So it's inferior battery fire. 9. 1 casualty. And that was it. Quick round. ADC availability. 1 reroll for the French, so it's 3 each. This time the Russians are going to have a brigade reroll and an artillery assault. That's their 3 used. And exactly the same for the French, 2 brigade rerolls and the scouts for the initiative, which of course I forgot the first time round. Right, Jaeger Brigade. No reroll required. I think it overly matters at the moment because of where they are. They're okay though. Musketeer Brigade to the right, they're okay. And the 2 French brigades, one on the left as we look, Infantry Brigade, they're okay. And the Dragoon Brigade, they are okay. And of course the 3rd Brigade, which are coming on turn 2, just to the left as we look. I should have been giving them a reroll because they're not coming on. Oh dear. Come on, Suchet, get your act together. Initiative. We'll go to the French this time. So obviously there's no charges into movement. The Russians are quite happy to stay here at the moment on the hill. They're not going to be moving forward from that, but they might think about bringing the Cossacks up and certainly the reserves shortly. The skirmishers are still well outside of range, so we're on to the battery fire. Still long range for the battery, but they're elevated and they've got artillery assault. They're going for the left battalion. Inferior battery and 2 casualty dice extra. Well, that's a disaster. They're immediately low on ammunition and just inflict 1 casualty. ADCs. That's the reroll with the adjutant, but there's 2 6s there, so they get 5 and the Russians 4. Right, so the Russians are going to have a brigade reroll here and skirmish tasking for the Jaeger skirmishers here. A reroll for the Cossacks. I want them just to move up a little bit here. And they'll also have a brigade tasking for the reserves. Whereas the French will have rerolls for the brigades coming up from the rear with a forwards tasking for this one over here. And a brigade reroll for the dragoons. So first of all, brigade on the left. They are okay, they're coming on with the forwards tasking. Dragoons, they're okay. And the other brigade up the rear are okay as well. Jaeger Brigade need a reroll. They're okay now. Cossacks, they're okay. And this brigade here is fine. Right, initiative. We'll go to the French again. So first of all, brigade with forwards tasking. That's 7 onto 15, so they will come 22. All measurements being in centimetres for 6mm figures. So there they are, coming on, giving support to the Grenadiers on their left, who will stay where they are. But they will push forward their skirmish screen. The Dragoons will change formation. And the 3rd and final Infantry Brigade will come on the table. The attack is starting to develop for the French now, looking a bit more menacing. Cossacks are going to reveal themselves, whoever misses, just coming over the hill. Now they are a bit feeble and can only really attack unformed troops or hit them in the flank or rear, so I'm going to use them as a bit of a bait and try and get the Dragoons to hit the French Dragoons as they attack the Cossacks. Sounds a bit complex and it probably won't work. So here's the Russian Dragoons entering from Pultusk. They've been released by Bennigsen to go and give Barclay de Tolly a bit of assistance. I've got to get all the way up the road through the woods here. And these skirmishers here are going to close so they can fight the Voltigeurs. Skirmish tasking. 5 dice. That's 3 hits, so just the 1 casualty. And 8 dice coming back from the Russians, which is 2 hits. Or 2 casualties, should I say. 1 battery low on ammunition. He gets 11. 2 casualties and a discipline test. So they're up to 4. They are veterans. And they score 8, so they are fine. No combat, end of turn. ADC availability. On a reroll for the French. So it's 3-2. No great surprise. Both sides have gone for skirmish tasking in the middle here. That's where the action is. Brigade reroll here and to the rear over there. And a brigade reroll for the Dragoon Reserve. Right, left-hand brigade are okay. This brigade are okay. Brigade coming up on the road, they're okay. And the Dragoons, yes. So the French are good to go. Jaegers, no. Hesitant. Musketeers, they're okay. Dragoons, they're okay. And Cossacks are okay. Initiative, and the Russians get an extra dice because of that hesitant, and that's a shame because they've lost. No charges, straight into movement. Dragoons are just going to come around here. Cossacks are just going to remain here for the moment. What they want to do is not get too close to those Dragoons. They're a fair way off at the moment. And there's a brigade to their left as well to give them some cover. But they don't want to go rushing forward too soon just yet. And the Dragoons will carry on up the road. Skirmishers. 7 dice for the French. Ooh, now that's a double 6. So, first of all, it's 4 hits, which is 2 casualties, so that means that they lose a stand. So, discipline test for these chaps, they are veterans. It is 6 or more, which they get easily, so they're alright. And they will return 5 with 7 dice. That's another 2 casualties from them. So that's a base of French gone. Now we're back to the gun. Now, hesitant brigade, I think they can only fire directly forward, but they can fire again on the left-hand battalion of that left-hand brigade as it advances. Long range, elevated, low on ammunition. And they've got another 11. What a great hit. So they pick up 2 casualties and they got a discipline test. Now these troops are basic line. That's not a problem. I was just doing a double check there. They can fire directly through the skirmishers unless they target them purposely. They didn't. So the result stands. 2 casualties on that line battalion. And that is the end of turn. ADC availability. Well, the French have 5, but the Russians pick up 6. Well, with that plethora of ADCs knocking around, all of the French units have a brigade reroll. And again, we have a skirmish tasking out the front here. And for the Russians, we have a brigade reroll and a forwards tasking for the Dragoons. Everybody else gets a brigade reroll, stand fast, the Musketeer brigade here, because we've got a skirmish tasking to the front and also an artillery assault with the artillery, because a caisson will be on the way. So I didn't go through rolling on camera for every brigade, but they've all passed it except for that lot. Can you believe it? They're marching past Souchet and they're fanning around so they don't move. Dear oh dear. So the French will have 3 dice. So that's even. And if it's even, it stays with the French because they are better at command. There we go. Left-hand brigade, as we look, is going to start manoeuvring for assault. As will the veterans. Skirmish screen will stay where it is. Continuing their sweep around to get the Cossacks, who will advance. As will this skirmish screen, and they're going to start peppering the Dragoons. And the last unit to move is the reserve Dragoons with their forwards tasking. It's 2d6 plus 28, so 33. Barclay de Tolly will also order the caisson up to resupply the battery. Right, back to the Voltigeurs on their skirmishers tasking. On 6 dice. Well, that's 2 casualties and a discipline test for the Jaegers. And they're okay. Jaegers will fire back. 7 dice. Just the 1. But over here we've got these skirmishers firing at the cavalry. -1 because they are cavalry. And that is 1 casualty. So not overly effective there. Back to the battery. They've been resupplied by that caisson. They're back to full ammunition. Target will be the left-hand battalion of the veteran brigade, just to the right as we look. Column target at effective range, and it's assault fire. A total of 2 casualties, not particularly exciting there. But this unit now has 6 casualties and he's worn. They're taking a bit of a pounding as they start the march up the hill. And that's the end of turn. Want to re-roll for the French? No, so just 2 ADCs each. Both generals concentrating their efforts in the middle at the moment. We have, again, artillery assault and the brigade re-roll for the Jaegers. And the French are doing a brigade re-roll and skirmish tasking for the veteran brigade. Again, brigade compliance is rolled off camera. The left-hand brigade for the French, as we look here, they are hesitant. They don't fancy it. They're fanning around. And also, for the Russians, the Cossacks, coming over the hill here, they've seen the French dragoons, and they've stopped in their tracks. Everybody else is compliant with orders. Right, initiative, again, is a draw, so it goes to the French. So they are going to push up even further. These skirmishers can still move, and they will. This brigade needs to get a move on. And the dragoons have got themselves in a bit of a pickle with those skirmishers to their right. So they are going to peel away a little bit, I think. Russian dragoons on the way. And these skirmishers will just push up again and keep harassing the dragoons. Voltigeurs against Jaegers, here we go. That's 3 hits, 1 casualty, which means the Jaegers lose another stand. Unfortunately, the majority of these Voltigeurs are out of range, so they can't fire. Just the 4 dice for the Jaegers, and that is all misses. Dear oh dear, they are getting beaten at the moment. But the guns are to the rescue. Artillery assault, effective range. And that's another 3 casualties on that battalion, and they're up to 9. They are wavering. Well, not wavering in the rules perspective, but they're still hanging out. So that's the end of turn. Looks as though the French are getting the best of the skirmish tussle at the moment in the centre. The Jaegers are going to get pushed back very shortly. Over in the far distance, the French dragoons are trying to get away from the annoying skirmishers, and the Cossacks are just holding fire there at the moment. But look at this. The Russian dragoons are coming to the rescue. ADC availability. Reroll for the French, and look at that. That's 6 because of that double 6, and 4 for the Russians. So for the French, brigade rerolls for the one on the left as we look. One in the centre with skirmish tasking as well. But over here, the dragoons, I've gone big there. Brigade reroll and forwards tasking, which should be 2 ADCs. I think I made a mistake before. And they are going to go for the Cossacks and try and clear them out of the way. The Russians stick with the same. Brigade reroll for the Jaegers, skirmish tasking, and artillery assault. The dragoons will also pick up a brigade reroll, and that is it. So brigade command compliance, I'm afraid this brigade coming along the road again is hesitant. They don't like a look of what's up ahead of them. Dragoons are okay, but the Russians, the musketeer battalion, they have had it. They've gone still, so well, it didn't really affect them too much, but more importantly, the Cossacks are hesitant. I did forget to say that the Russians also have scouts, so they can get a reroll on the initiative. 4 dice for the Russians, 3 for the French. So that's going to be those 2 there for the French, those 2 there for the Russians, those 2 there for the French. 1 scout's reroll. Doesn't make a difference there. The French have the initiative. Right, so finally we're going to get a charge. I'm going to get these dragoons here to charge these here, and the others will be supporting. They've got a forwards tasking. So it's a bit of a gamble. They've got 28 plus 2d6 to go, and that's 8, so it's 36, which is more than enough. Well, it'll be no surprise that the Cossacks are going to evade, and the whole brigade will go with them. So they will about face and go 24. And the dragoons have victory, will take the ground. They also recover a casualty. Back to the French right flank. And that's it for the moment for the French. That central brigade with the veterans is just biding their time, and they'll be going shortly. They want to win that skirmish battle, and of course that 3rd Infantry Brigade are still lagging behind. Right, over to the Russians. Cavalry will move forward. I guess these skirmishers can just come back a little bit. A bit exposed out there. And that is pretty much it. Unfortunately for the Cossacks, after that evasion, that is them done. They're unformed, have 1 casualty each, and those dragoons are right on their tail. So back to the skirmish in the centre of the battlefield. The French have 6 dice because of skirmish tasking. And that's just 1 casualty. And unfortunately for the French, this skirmish line is just out of range of the battery, which they want to take on. And I have put a casualty on there. They got that when they went on low on ammunition earlier in the game. So over to the Russians. Also 6 dice. 2 casualties and a discipline test. So the French lose a base. Ooh dear. Now they are veteran, but skirmishers take 1 casualty. They go up to 2 and unformed. Artillery assault by the battery, and they're going for the same battalion. So the green dice give us 7, which is 1 casualty. The red give us another 3, so it's a total of 4. Which gives a total of 13 on there, over their dispersal point, and they are going to disperse. So I've just removed them straight away because there's nobody behind them. And unfortunately, that brigade is going to falter. Not good for the French. So that's the end of the turn there. The French left with the dragoons chasing off the Cossacks have done well, but right in the centre, they've had a disaster. 1 battalion has run away, skirmishers are unformed, and looky here, the Russian dragoons are ready to pounce. Can Suchet pull this out the bag? Otherwise they might have a real problem. So we're on to ADC availability. 1 reroll for the French. I don't get it. Alright, so it's 4 each, but 1 of those has got to go to the general, because of that faltering brigade. So the French have decided to have a brigade reroll over here on their right. Try and get this other reserve brigade up the road and into action. And also the dragoons over there. That is it. The Russian brigade of Jaegers have a reroll, and they're also hot on the skirmish tasking. They're getting the upper hand now. The dragoons will have a brigade reroll. And in order to try and get this lot reformed, they will have a brigade reroll as well. All brigades have rolled successfully there, but what I need to do now is roll for a faltering brigade. They are veterans. Here we go. This is critical. Oh! Sauve qui peut. Oh my lordy. Brigade skirmish line disappears. All other brigade units retreat and lose 4 casualty dice casualties. And the brigade remains faltering. Right, so they're gone. So where they go? And that's an absolute disaster for the French. The veteran brigade have retreated in the face of that heavy artillery coming down on 1 of their battalions, which has run away, and the rest didn't like it up them. They've gone. So it is initiative. And the French get an extra dice because of that faltering. Take the lowest 2, and there we have it. The Russians have the initiative. So first of all, the Cossacks will reform. And that's all they can do. I think this skirmish line is actually going to come around here a bit more. Give flank protection. And these cavalry are going to move forward. Away the cavalry go. These Voltigeurs will move up. In fact, they'll shuffle over to their right. They're going to try and get rid of this battery. Skirmish line will move up, and the rest of the brigade will toddle on behind. These dragoons on the left flank have done a good job of chasing away those Cossacks, but they've massed again, and now those dragoons are on their own. So I think they might retire a bit. And those skirmishers, unfortunately, are not going to be able to hit that brigade. However, they can probably swing around here and have a pop at them. Well, they're just in range. It's 6 dice with that skirmish tasking. But that's no effect. But these gutsy Voltigeurs are going to take on the battery. 5 dice. Well, that's 3 hits, 1 casualty. That could have been better. So the battery will open fire. They're going to fire through the skirmishers at the right-hand battalion as we look. It's effective range. It's not artillery assault, but it's a column target. Well, they get a casualty themselves for that poor roll, but also inflict 1 on this battalion. Before I start the next turn, of course, I forgot to put the casualties on these 2 battalions. So the one on the right, as we look, has 4, and the Grenadiers in the foreground have 1. But this brigade is faltering. 1 re-roll for the French. So they have 5, but one of them has to go to the Commander-in-Chief. So effectively it's 4 ADCs per side. So for the French, it's a brigade re-roll for all of the 3 brigades, apart from the veterans, and also 1 skirmisher tasking here. And for the Russians, it's a brigade re-roll for the Dragoons, the Jaeger brigade, their skirmishers, and the artillery for an artillery assault. And after the compliance rolls, it's okay for the French, but unfortunately, all the Dragoons have suddenly got cold feet, and they've gone hesitant. That's a real shame. However, before we do anything, let's roll for this faltering brigade. Oh my god, not again. Sauve qui peut. So I'm thinking that all they do there is retreat and take another 4 casualty dice each. Unlucky. Grenadiers take 2. They'll be up to 3. And the line will take another 3. They're up to 7. Back to initiative. And that goes to the Russians. Well, although they're hesitant, these Dragoons can actually change formation, which they'll do. They're far enough away from the enemy to do that. The Cossacks will advance just to annoy the Dragoons. As will this skirmish screen. And for the French, this brigade will advance. As will these. Get into range. These Dragoons are getting a bit bullied at the moment. They've got the Cossacks on their left and the skirmishers to their front, so they are going to disappear over there, just outside of range. Right, first up we are going to have skirmish tasking, firing at this battalion. Well, that is 4 hits for 2 casualties. So they go up to 3. The Voltigeurs, again, at the battery. 1 casualty and a discipline test. They are line artillery. 7. And they're okay. And the battery will open fire now. They'll ignore the skirmishers and go straight for the right-hand battalion as it advances. They are just outside of canister range, which is a real shame. Good hit. 7 is 1 casualty, and 3 extra casualty dice is 4 casualties. So this front right battalion is on 7 casualties now and really suffering. And that's the end of turn. Things very much in the balance at the moment. This front right battalion for the French is getting itself to assault, but they are desperately close to being canistered to death. The dragoons for the Russians in the centre have paused and are not very happy. I don't know why, because the veteran brigade have fallen back, but obviously there's this other brigade advancing. Perhaps that's why the dragoons have been a bit careful. ADC availability. Reroll for the French. Yes, but 1 goes to the CNC because of the faltering brigade, so it's 4 to the Russians and 3 to the French. So for the taskings, the Jaeger brigade again have a reroll, skirmish tasking and the artillery assault, and the dragoons have a reroll. The right-hand French brigade, as they are, get a reroll and skirmish tasking. I was thinking of doing post of honour with the commander-in-chief, but if they charge into that battery and get canistered at close range, that could be absolute carnage. So they're going to hold off for that for a bit. And the last tasking for ADCs is a brigade reroll for the ones on the road. Compliance-wise, after the rolling there, everybody is okay, apart from, unfortunately, the old dragoons. They've gone hesitant again. They don't like the look of that column coming in front of them and all those skirmishers. Oh my lordy. However, before we go anywhere, let's see what the faltering brigade is going to do. That is very unfortunate. I cannot believe I've rolled so badly. And I think that means they're wavering. Any retreating units make a retreat move and lose 4 casualty dice casualties. Oh dear. They also remain faltering. They are reverse ferreting at a rapid rate of knots. Grenadiers take 4. And they'll be up to 7. And the line just take another 1. So they're on 8, I think. Desperate times though. Right, initiative. Well, that will go to the French remarkably because they have a better command system, allegedly. Now, big question. Do we charge in here? I think I'll leave it for the moment and wait for the skirmishers to do their job. So no. This brigade will change formation. Rear battalion needs to do some catching up. And the dragoons will move off over here. Cossacks will advance. Now we've got some skirmish fire here, again against the battery. That's 2 casualties, which puts them up to 5. And a discipline test. 6. Which means they're now unformed. These skirmishers will fire at the cavalry. 4 dice. That is 3 hits, 1 casualty. And finally for the Russians, these skirmishers will open fire on this battalion who've got 7 casualties already. They're looking a bit dodgy. That's just the 1 casualty, so they go to 8. Back to the Russian battery then, they will open fire. It's artillery assault, but they're unformed, and they're firing against the right-hand battalion as we look. Inferior volley. Ooh, that's a big hit. 1 casualty off the firing and 3 extras, so that's another 4. And I'm afraid that battalion has hit 12. Morale has collapsed, actual casualties are high, and the men are exhausted. So they will move directly away from the enemy. 6. Well, they move through them. They're unformed. And they are gone. The remainder are going to falter. And one final thing I didn't do last time is this battalion is going to fire volley at the skirmishers. 1 extra casualty dice, but it is an inferior volley because they're firing at skirmishers. So that is just 1 casualty on those voltigeurs. And that is the end of that round, and it is getting catastrophic for the French. I mean, look at it. They're faltering. A battalion has run away. That lot keeps on going backwards. And this brigade is still messing around, not even in formation properly to do an assault. The Russians are holding the line. ADC availability. Reroll for the French. Right, so 2 are going to go for the faltering brigades. So it's 3 for the French and 5, 6 for the Russians. So the Russians are going big in the centre. Brigade reroll, forwards and glory, 4 ADCs for the Dragoons. They are going to smash into that brigade coming up the road. They will also have a brigade reroll here on the left with the Jaegers and skirmish tasking. And I'm afraid for the French it's not a great deal happening here. 1 brigade reroll for the brigade on the road, a skirmish tasking for them. They might get run down in a moment, and the Dragoons will get a brigade reroll. However, of immediate concern is rolling for the faltering brigade here. 5. They rally. So that goes. And they are just hesitant. And the veterans at the rear. Oh, finally they rally as well. And got their act together. So from the brigade commander compliance perspective, those 2 French brigades are now hesitant. And unfortunately for them, the Dragoons have also gone hesitant. They don't like what's happening in the centre of the battlefield, so they're staying put. And for the Russians, the brigade of musketeers is hesitant, but to be honest, that's not really going to affect much. Initiative, 5 dice for the French. I'm taking the 2 lowest. And, oh dear, can you believe it? They've actually got initiative. There are no charges for the French, but I tell you what, the Russian Dragoons are in. So the skirmishers will fire as they come in. So I'll do that first. 6 dice only. And that's no effect. Disaster. Well, I'll take that away. These are just going to disappear. Cavalry are in. Now, as I understand it, these guys need to do a discipline test to try and get into square, which is what they want to do. They are line. And 6 is not good enough. Oh my lordy. So they're unformed, no defensive fire. That's 2 dice for the Russians, 3 for the French, taking the lowest, and the Russians will get a reroll if they need it, and I don't think they do. I'm going to stick with that. So it's 10-4, which is 6 or more. The attacker is victory, and the defender is dispersed. Right, well, they've got room to run around the others, so they have gone. Cavalry will take the ground. And they lose that casualty. And I'm afraid that brigade is going to falter. I'll just move Matey back there. Well, now it's the movement phase, and I don't think the French can do a great deal. I guess these guys can reform. Perhaps these skirmishers can come back here. Not quite sure about that. Anyway, that's it. Everybody else is hesitant or faltering. These skirmishers will move forward here. I think they can reform as well. And the Cossacks will move forward. They can scent blood. This skirmish line will again pivot around to the left. Right, we're on to firing, so we'll have 5 dice here at the battery. 1 hit, no effect. Jaeger skirmishers will fire at these. They're on skirmish tasking, 6 dice. And that's just 1 casualty. And I'm assuming these skirmishers can fire at the cavalry there. 1 casualty. Battery fire now, firing at the front left battalion as we look. Effective range and its column target. Well, that is a monster hit. 11, which is 3 casualties, with the extra 1 is 4 and a discipline test. And up to 6. And because they got 6 casualties, they're demoted to the reservist recruit line for the discipline test roll. 3, they will retreat and take another 4 casualty dice casualties. Oh dear. So back they go. They'll go through them. They'll become unformed. Another 4 casualty dice, which is another 3. And that, I think, is that Suchet has cooked his goose well and proper. The Russians have held the hill, held the wood, and pretty much destroyed the French. I'm not going to push this on any further because I'm not going to play suicide. These guys are hesitant and unformed, and 1 battalion has dispersed and 1's retreated. This brigade in the middle has just got smashed. They lost a battalion to the dragoons who are running rampant, and this lot have retreated a couple of times. They're still hesitant at the back. And even on the French left, the dragoons fanning around, hesitant as well. And they've got the Cossacks on their left. Brigade of Musketeers didn't do anything, and the Jaegers didn't really do much. The gun, even though it got a few sneaky extra artillery assaults in there, did the business, and it was a big ask for the French, and unfortunately they failed. Northern flank of Pultusk is held by the Russians.